There we go. We are recording. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's virtual roundtable series with Mersion. We are so pleased to have you here. As I mentioned, I'm seeing lots of familiar names. Thank you. Welcome back. You know, we always love having you as part of the conversation. And to those of you that are new to us, we welcome you. Perhaps you saw the invite for our Kindness at Work Symposium and signed up and saw that this was happening today, so you joined us. We're happy to have you. Come when you wish. We're grateful that you found your way to us. So today we are actually talking with Tina Bjork from Coca-Cola. And one of the great things that's exciting about these roundtables, we do call them roundtables instead of webinars because we want them to be interactive. We want you to be a part of it. And so to go ahead and just get you used to that, we're going to get into that chat function. Go ahead, use that chat function, say hello, and let us know where you're calling from. And if you would please let us know your role, your focus, what you're working on these days, because it really does help us focus in on that conversation, and we really appreciate that. So here's what's going to happen in the next, let's say 55 minutes. I'll try to be respectful of my own words earlier. Within our roundtable here, we are going to say hello. I will give a brief introduction to Mersion. Tina's going to lead our presentation, and we'll actually see a VR presentation. We're actually going to see one of the scenarios that we created with Coca-Cola. She's been kind enough to share that with us. And I think part of what's really exciting about these roundtables is we always learn through storytelling. And today, Tina gets to tell us a story of our journey with Mersion, and we're just going to give you a little teaser. It's almost like a prelude because we're going to show you how we started this journey, and I think it's a great way to share how you can begin that process and utilize Mersion from the start, and then where that's taken us and how that's going to lead us to our next steps. So I'm very excited to share that. Of course, we'll have time for Q&A, and again, make sure you use that chat function, ask questions, share comments, thoughts, positive, negative, whatever. This is about having an interaction and a conversation, so bring it on, all right? So who are these people that you're looking at? My name is Jamie Thomason. I am a learning partner with Mersion and a simulation specialist. I'll explain a little more about what that means as we get into it. Today, we have Dr. Carrie Straub with us, and Carrie has been with Mersion from the very beginning and is also working closely with Tina and the team at Coca-Cola, so happy to have her on board. And then, of course, we have Tina, who I mentioned. I'm not going to read this beautiful bio to you, but I'll send it to you. I'll leave it up here for just a moment. As I said, we're very thrilled to have her and to have Coca-Cola partner with us and to share that story with you today. So, what is Mersion? We are a VR company for practicing soft skills, those difficult conversations. A lot of times when people think of VR, they think of that headset. And just to be clear, the majority of what we do actually is exactly what you're going to see here today. When people sit down at their laptops or their PCs and they have that interaction, be it one-on-one or there's groups, but you can do it at home, which is a beautiful thing right now. But we are used for practicing those difficult conversations, whether it's managing team conflict, consolidating work styles, or that providing that inclusive environment, anything that you need to let your learners practice so that they can come out with the confidence and the competence to go out and have those conversations in the real world. That's what we're all about. And we are found in leadership development, sales, service, of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is an underlying part of all of the above. And we started out in education, and that's where Dr. Straub comes in. She was actually a part of the research project funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation at the University of Central Florida. So I'm sure she'd be happy to touch on that or touch base about that if you have any questions moving forward. We also work with healthcare and even a little bit in the Defense Department. And for anyone who isn't familiar, we are the only place that utilizes a live human in the loop combined with artificial intelligence to drive avatars within custom environments to deliver customized scenarios. And that is Mersion in a nutshell. I don't want to take up any more of your time because I really want to be able to turn things over to Tina. So I'm going to welcome you. And Tina, thanks again for being here.
Unmuting myself now. Hello, thank you so much for the warm welcome. And thank you to the 40 plus people who have joined us from all over the world. And feel free in the chat, those of you that haven't had a chance to do that, to share where you're calling or where you're joining us in from. It's always interesting to see all the diversity of the participants here. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you all can see this. First, I'm really curious, as we're in this pandemic state and all of us are kind of thinking about when are we going to be able to take our next vacation. So can you chat to us where you would go on your first trip post-pandemic while I'm pulling up my screen?
Okay. Oh my goodness.
It's a tough one, I know, because there's probably lots of places that we would like to
I
go
know. Well,
see.
honestly, Tina, I'm thinking like, is it where I want to go or where I can realistically go?
Hey, let's shoot for
Sadly,
the
they're the same.
Yes. Oh, no limits at all. Hello from LA County, Natalie. Oh, going to Hawaii for sure. Maui. Yes, love it. Paris, France, Melbourne. Oh, that sounds wonderful. Hi from North Carolina. Oh, we've got several that would go to Europe and Greece. Visit my family in Georgia. Beatrice, not sure if that's Georgia as in the US Georgia or outside of the US Georgia. But I came from Georgia just recently to Southern California. So Atlanta was the former 5-year place of where I lived. Great. Well,
and I'm seeing a couple of North Carolinas. I'm a born and bred North Carolinian myself. So
I love it. And Prague. Okay, I've known several people that have gone to Prague and said nothing but amazing things about it. Wow. Okay, great.
Michelle was scheduled. I hope you get back there. I hope
yes,
it works out.
I do just want to make sure that everyone is there and can use the chat. So that's a great way to test and also to have us thinking about where we're going to go immediately following this crazy pandemic time. So thank you again, Jamie, for the introduction. I'm going to share just a little bit about what we experienced in just one of our engagements with Mersion. We have actually been partnering with Mersion on numerous occasions related to leadership development and coaching skills. And most recently, we're actually in the midst of deploying an experience around building facilitation skills for multiple trainers around the globe. So there are just plenty of options, and we have tapped into numerous options on using and partnering with Mersion. But the one that I wanted to kind of hone in on today and share with you was really the catalyst that gave us the buy-in that we needed from the business and from our leaders to say, yes, this is something that we need to continue to focus on and expand throughout the organization. And that is earlier this year when we embarked on our influencing and negotiating challenge. So I will share a little bit about that story, and we'll get to see, I think the most important part is to see a simulation in action. So definitely want to leave time for that. Some of the topics are just, we'll talk a little bit about our goals as an organization and what we were trying to do in partnering with Mersion and using these simulations. We'll talk about what we saw in terms of learner engagement for this particular experience. We'll get to see a scenario in practice, which is the coolest thing ever. I'm sure if some of you have seen it, you know what I'm talking about, but those of you that haven't, this is going to be a really neat thing for you to observe. And then, of course, some learner outcomes. So what did we actually see and get out of the time? So looking at the business outcomes, we knew that we needed to deliver training remotely. And this was a decision that we made even prior to COVID, thankfully. So we were already beginning to think about how we could deliver not just self-paced learning and send people out to do various e-learning courses, but also how could we build essential human skills through practice and in an authentic environment. So that was one of our key outcomes that we were looking for. Also, we wanted to have kind of a choose your own adventure approach because we know that learners are more invested in their learning experience when they get to have some choice. So it was really a great opportunity for learners to be able to choose which scenario they wanted to practice based on what resonates with them, which is why instead of just doing one big blanket influencing and negotiating scenario, we decided to really break it down into 4 different pieces that we'll look at in just a minute. We wanted to gain insight into the gaps of our learners. We really couldn't pinpoint what was most challenging within the domain of influencing and negotiating. We had deployed surveys, we've done focus groups, and in our surveys, it was very clear that people thought influencing and negotiating skills were very important, but they didn't feel very confident that they could do things well to really drive an impact. So that was one of the pieces of outcomes that we were looking for, was what are those gaps that our learners are experiencing? And through this practice, we could see that. We also wanted to provide a safe and authentic environment with high authenticity and low stakes, and we achieved that based on all of the learner feedback. And then in general, just the cultural efficacy of this type of experience. For us, it was relatively new to this part of the organization that we tested this in, and we wanted to get that buy-in and that evidence so that we could support doing additional practice simulations as part of our future capability development programs. And we did prove that out through an excellent Net Promoter Score. And if you're wondering what that NPS represents, it's that Net Promoter Score. So we're asking the learner whether they would recommend this particular solution to a colleague or a friend. And we achieved an excellent score through this experiment with the influencing and negotiating. And very quickly on the scope, before I get into a polling question, we delivered 24 training sessions, and we did this for both individual contributors and people leaders. So we thought it was really important that not just as a people leader you get to practice these skills, but there's also an art and a science to influencing and negotiating when you are not, when someone is not your direct report, right? Influencing without authority was really important. We did them as one-on-one sessions, which we opted to do for this so that we could test it out in kind of a much more safe space. And because these particular individuals that participated in the pilot didn't already have established rapport with one another, didn't really know each other that well, we thought we could practice it more in a one-on-one and test that out versus doing kind of that small group of 4. We had 4 distinct scenarios that we collaborated with Immersion to build. We gave them inputs like, this is our organizational culture and our organizational objectives and a little bit about how we operate, so that then the scenarios that were designed could be made relevant to the things that our people actually experience, which was really powerful. And a note here that as we talk about the pandemic and its impact that it's had on all of us, we delivered these sessions in March. That was the original plan. We just kept moving forward. And obviously in the US especially, that is where a lot of the uptick in the cases began, and when we really started to go into kind of this shutdown mode. And so that is something that we think impacted the adoption because of the timing. So we didn't have nearly as many people that we wanted to able to participate in these training sessions for that reason. But we did get enough data that we feel comfortable in kind of moving forward and determining next steps from that. So I would love to get your thoughts on, within your organization, how critical are influencing and negotiating skills? Highly critical, critical, or not critical? And there isn't an option on what is influencing and negotiating, because I'm hoping that everyone is aligned on that. So if you'll just let us know, how critical are influencing and negotiating skills?
And I see numbers are still moving, Tina, so I'm going to give everybody at least a minute to think about this, and whether you're the one that's implementing that training, taking that training, observing that training, or observing the lack thereof. We'd love your input on that.
That would be great.
And we're coming up on a minute. I think everybody should be able to answer that. So we'll shut it down in 3, 2, and 1, and there's our results. So
All right.
52% say critical, 44 highly critical, and only 4% not critical.
Okay. So I think we share that in common for sure. It looks like we're all really looking at how we can build influencing and negotiating skills, as it is at least critical to our organization and its success moving forward. So thank you for responding to that. Okay. Just some quick stats on the results from our participants. We had 9 out of 10 of the participants said that they practiced new relevant skills that they could apply on the job. Great feedback there. And then that net promoter score was consistently excellent at 58. So obviously, from just a learner engagement and whether this resonated, this definitely had a positive impact on the learner's confidence and their impression of the relevancy. Other feedback, learners gave commentary on that they felt it was realistic and applicable. And it was interesting that multiple participants said that it was better to learn from the avatars than actual people. It was less intimidating, kind of having that barrier there. And I think Merjan has some research and some specific information related to that. And Jamie, I don't know if you have that or wanted to share, but.
Yeah, I do. And actually what I can do is include that in our follow-up as well. We'll include that research on the use of avatars. Happy to do so.
Awesome. Yeah, because I thought that was really interesting and compelling. And learners were able to practice storytelling and build new human skills in a safe space. So.
Oh, I was going to pop in on that research. I thought it is really fascinating. Like we found, especially when people compare like a video conference or a telephone call, people will, if they're talking via avatars with that digital kind of psychologically safe place, they'll actually speak more verbal or nonverbal behavior. Like there's something about being in that virtual environment that makes them more open. And it's so, I think maybe it's like kind of game-like. I don't know. What did you hear from your people, Tina?
Yeah, it was, because it didn't feel as intimidating as having, you know, the sort of human there in the flesh,
and like
as it was.
Yeah, and even
gamified it.
When you role play with your boss, then like at worst it's your boss, right? That's like evaluating you while you do the role play. So the avatars are kind of safe. Anyways, I wanted to pop in because I thought that's research coming out of Jeremy Billinson's lab at Stanford. So
love it. I knew that was there and you had that. So thank you for sharing. Yeah, and I don't know how many of you love role plays when you're put into a training environment. I don't know many people that do. I feel like we all kind of sigh when we're asked to do role plays, and it just feels so fake. So this was definitely something that did not have that level. I mean, it was super realistic. So looking at the scenarios that we put together, you might be wondering, what were the 4? So here they were: encouraging innovative thinking and diversity of thought, pitching an idea to a superior. We had one around project management and how to influence without authority. And then we had one related to resolving work handoff conflict. And the little people icons just represent the chosen scenarios, the number of people that chose each one. So this gave us really interesting insight into our learners and what seemed to be more attractive to them based on what they wanted to practice. Obviously, influencing without authority was one that had, you know, slightly more than the pitching an idea to a superior. And so we could kind of drill down into that and get feedback on why that was. One thing that we discovered, and we kind of already knew going in, is that in our environment, we avoid conflict. You know, typically people don't gravitate toward it. So whenever you see the word conflict in an opportunity to practice a skill, that can be, you know, a little bit intimidating and scary. And so not a lot of people were up to the challenge there. Those 2 brave souls decided to help resolve that work handoff conflict. Another poll. So looking back at the 4 scenarios, which one do you think would resonate most with your learners or your audience members that you work with?
So we'll give everybody a minute to think through that. And I see Shanti has raised her hand, so if you do have a question, go ahead and drop that into chat for us, or you can use that question. You can drop down and send it just to me or just a panelist or to everybody. But this is a good time to remind everyone to that point that if you do that, use that little arrow next to your name, it will say all panelists and attendees, and that way you can make certain that as you're sharing things, you're sharing with the whole class, so to speak. So I'm giving everybody a little bit of time to muddle over this one, and once again,
while we're doing that, I love the attention that you paid to the conflict, because you're right. It's like no one likes taking their medicine, or we know we need to go to the gym, but we don't want to go do those like plank things, but we know we should do it. So I wonder if you like, just thinking about like always improving, like if we change the name so that it's like mastering conflict or something like that, that we could kind of get people in. Yeah,
Carrie, another conversation that Tina and I had is, I said, that work handoff conflict, this is part of what we do. We learn as we go and we grow, right? And that's another reason we do this pilot project, so that we learn what we need to adjust. Because I thought, if I looked at that, I would think, am I going to be managing conflict between myself and someone else, which is really a difficult thing to put yourself into, but I believe the actual simulation was managing conflict between two others. So I think we also have to make certain that we're clear about what it is we're asking when we give them those choices, because that conflict could go either way.
That's a really great point, and a lesson learned for sure.
So great. Let's go ahead and share these results.
Oh, nice. Okay. Encouraging innovative thinking and diversity of thought, you think would be something that would resonate most with your population. And then the influencing without authority, followed by pitching an idea to a superior. And kind of not surprising that work handoff conflict didn't seem to be one that would appeal. So to Jamie's point and to Carrie's point, I think thinking about a way to frame that up so that it is something that people would want to participate in potentially if they get a choice.
Well, because as uncomfortable as it is, unfortunately, that is one of those sticky conversations that we do face. Conflict is just a part of life. And so I think, to your point, figuring out how to encourage people to do that so that they can build that confidence to handle those sticky situations.
Absolutely. Great. Well, thank you again for your responses to that. It's great to see where everyone landed. All right, so just digging more into the data, it was really interesting to be able to see specific commentary. So we knew that 8 and 10 participants said that they learned new skills they could apply on the job. And so we had, the specific stats for that, and in addition to some commentary that we could drill down into and see. So people did have some lessons learned, and they shared what those were, which is great. And then most participants were interested in more immersion simulations and practice, which was great to see, and is one of the reasons we have decided to make this a part of our regular programming. All right, this is where we get into the fun stuff and we get to actually see this in action. This scenario is around the project management influencing without authority one that many of you said would be chosen by your learners. And so we're going to get a chance to see this in action, and we have someone who is going to be participating as a learner, and we've also have our immersion avatar. Just to give you a quick idea, and then you will definitely get all the details prior to observing the practice, is this was designed to give learners an opportunity to practice their skills, particularly in a time-sensitive situation. They needed to gain agreement immediately during the conversation, which is often difficult when you have clients or partners that are in a rush and don't want to make an on-the-spot decision, but you need to get that guarantee or agreement from them during that very brief conversation. So that was the challenge that we had ahead of us. And then we had a number of strategies or best practices that we shared with people. And prior to going into these 4 simulations, they took a self-paced course that went over kind of fundamentals of influencing and negotiating. And they were given a quick job aid checklist to work with and to utilize when they were doing their practice. So just so that you know, we did something ahead of time to get them prepared. And then we went through the practice and did something to follow up. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment because I know now we're going to look at the simulation.
Great. Thank you so much, Tina. And we're going to come back to the storytelling, but we've got Erica who's joined us. Erica, you want to say hello and just share where you're calling in from and a little bit about
Sure.
how we're attached. Erica is actually our volunteer. And for those of you that join us on a regular basis, or even if you're brand new, if you'd like to be a volunteer for a simulation coming up at a future roundtable, please reach out to me. It's easier to kind of plan in advance so I know who to move over and keep things rolling. Welcome, Erica.
So, thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited, and I echo everything that's been said so far, that the interaction with the avatars is really, really cool, and you get a lot out of it. So I'm hoping that I can be helpful to everybody.
That's right. And Erica, where are you calling in from today?
Oh yeah, Niagara Falls, New York. So
Excellent.
I have a very pretty location about 8 minutes from me that I may go visit this weekend.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for volunteering and jumping in. I'm going to introduce you. I don't know if you've met Maya. Maya is going to be our avatar host for today.
Hi,
so,
Maya.
Maya, this is Erica. I'm going to let you, I'm going to leave you in Maya's capable hands, and we'll see you on the other side.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Great. Well, hi, Erica. Welcome. I love that guitar behind you.
Thank you. My husband made that. I like it too.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. Well, welcome, welcome. So I'm your host today, Erica. I'll be able to hopefully answer any questions that you have and kind of talk you through what's going to happen here step by step. Before we begin, Erica, I did want to ask if you were interested in having this interaction recorded. A lot of participants find it helpful. It goes only to you. So you get to look at it and decide if you would like to share it or not. And sometimes it's helpful because it's easy to forget what happens in the heat of the moment. All right, great. Then let me go ahead and get that started. So Erica, I did start the recording and I just want to confirm that I have your permission.
You do. Thank you, Maya.
All right. All right. Let's rock and roll. I say that because of the
good.
guitar behind you.
Perfect.
Okay. So, yeah. So can you see the slide, Erica?
I can.
All right. I am going to try to quickly read this out to anyone who either can't see it or isn't familiar with it. So in this scenario, you are managing a project to enhance a business system used by our employees to update their personal information. The project began about a month ago. The prioritization panel review was 2 weeks ago, in which you presented a list of requirements for features and bug fixes. So since then, you went back to your team and you created a prioritized ask list, which was presented to Max, who is the product owner for the project. You now need Max to sign off on those requirements before you can begin the development process. So you've been waiting for Max's response, and you're now a week past the internal deadline. So for the last week, you've pinged Max each day in hopes of a response. The final project deadline is 2 months away, and at this point, the project success is in danger unless you can get Max on board. So today you happened to run into Max as he was grabbing a coffee in the cafe. His headphones were still in while he was on a conference call, and he was distracted, but he was apologetic, and he was able to find about 15 minutes for the two of you to meet. So you're aware at this point in the process that no additional changes can be made to the requirements. So your hope for the meeting is that Max will sign off on the ask list that you presented. You know him, that he's kind, he's generous, but in the past, his efforts to please everyone have sometimes resulted in some delays. So your hoped for outcome is to utilize influence skills to gain some shared ownership and agreement from Max that guarantees the project is completed by the deadline. You have about 10 to 12 minutes to have the conversation. And then over there on the side, you have some strategies and best practices to consider. So you might want to build and maintain rapport and trust by assuming best intent and a sense of allyship with Max. You might want to try asking some open-ended, curious questions and demonstrate active listening techniques. And then finally come to an agreement that best fulfills the needs of the project.
Perfect.
So I know that's a lot of information, Erica. Do you feel like you are ready to let the slide go and talk with Max?
I'm ready to give it a shot.
All right. Well, great. And I just want to remind you, this is practice, practice. So if at any point during the conversation, you need to bail, you get completely lost, you totally don't know what to say next, all you have to do is say, pause, I'll come back, we'll coach it out. And then you can just jump right back into the conversation where you left off, or you can start over even if you want.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
So Erica, in a moment, I will disappear from this chair. You'll see an empty office. And then Max will appear. He'll greet you. Your simulation will begin. And you'll have about 10 to 12 minutes. And then I'll be back and we can chat about it.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Maya.
All right. Thank you. And
Welcome.
I will see you after.
Sounds good.
Hey, Erica.
Hey, Max, how are you?
Yeah. I'm doing okay. You know, a little slammed, but yeah, I got a few minutes here. Hey, what's up?
Perfect. Well, thank you for taking some time. I know that you're really busy, so I won't try to keep you
Yeah.
any longer than I need to. But what I really wanted to
Okay.
do is have a discussion with you about the new system that we've been working on. I'm really excited about it. Are you excited about it?
Yeah, I am excited. Yeah.
Perfect. So I just wanted to take a couple minutes. I know that we're a little past due with getting the sign off to the project team so that they could start building. And I just wanted to ask you, is there anything, that's bothering you about the system? I know it might be a timing issue, but I just wanted to check in and see if you had any concerns with the list that I sent to you.
Yeah, Erica, I don't want to delay this rollout. Absolutely not. But I gotta say, I'm feeling a little conflicted about just a few things.
Okay, and what things are you conflicted about?
Well, honestly, I'm waiting on a response from one of your colleagues, Sandy. Yeah, she came to me, and she just let me know that she had some requests for some additional features, and I wanted to hear that. I just kind of wanted to explore that a little bit before we move ahead.
Okay. How long ago did you have a conversation with Sandy? Was it recent, a couple weeks ago?
Geez, it's been, I think it's been this week, and
Okay.
I've been trying to get in touch with her, but it's the end of the quarter and everybody's so crazy. So, she had asked me to review her suggestions, but she just hasn't gotten back to me just yet.
Okay, because I know we have a challenge with time and we need to
Yeah,
get
I hear
the
that.
sign off. So I'm wondering if the request that she have could actually be in a future enhancement. Do you see them as anything that would be like a game stopper?
Right. Well, Erica, I haven't honestly gotten a chance to go through them with any real attention, and I guess I guess my hesitation here is that you know, I'd like to save us the time and kind of get it right, out the gate. And Sandy, I trust her. She's super smart, and I feel like if she has some things, we might want to just pause a little bit so we can hear her concerns.
Okay. So I know that that will cause a challenge with getting the system implemented on the deadline that we have. Would you be
Yeah.
okay if I had a chat with Sandy and or got a developer to be in that meeting?
Oh. Uh, no, I don't. I think that would be okay. I think mostly, I just think, why not? I think we should just, vet this system carefully. I don't know if she has any prior experience. Like, I don't know. I don't know if she's utilized it before. She has prior experience. So, yeah, if you could nail her down and,
Okay.
just make sure we kind of go, just hear her out and hear her concerns. That way we're just, we're doing our, I know that you did a lot of work and a lot of research. I don't mean to say that you didn't, but I hate those last minute surprises. So if somebody
Right.
has something to offer, it feels like it's worth taking the time.
Right. I agree with you. And one of the things I wanted to do was just kind of find out what would make you comfortable with moving forward and signing off. So if having the meeting
Yeah.
would make you comfortable, I'm happy to set that up. Are there other things that would help to make you comfortable to sign off on it, just so we could get started, and then we can again work
Yeah.
with the developers to see how feasible it is to put Sandy's new requirements in and when we could put them in. Maybe it's a phased approach, but
Yeah.
I'm happy to facilitate those conversations. But I wanted to see, is there anything else
Wow.
that, would make you feel more comfortable, or anything else that might be holding you back from signing off?
Gosh, Erica, no, that was really it. It was just, it was that one thing sort of like, out there. And I thought I'd just feel more comfortable signing off if we just had a chance to, that way we don't sign off and Sandy's like, hey, I could have told you this was and then we
Right.
avoid, yeah, we avoid that. If she's like, if you had just taken 10 minutes to talk to me, I could have saved, I don't know what she's gonna say. I don't have that information in front of me, but if you have the time, Erica, and you can kind of chase her down and
Absolutely.
talk through it with her. And then I do want you to circle back with me, though. I would like to
Yeah.
hear what gets said. um that,
That
yeah, that would ease that would take the obstacle that I saw out, so that would be good.
That sounds totally fair to me. So here's my game plan. What I'll do next is I will set up a meeting with Sandy and one of the developers, and I'll just CC you so you're aware that it's happening. And then a week or so after that, I'll schedule
Great.
like 15 minutes for us again, because again, I know how busy you are. So I'll schedule something very quick, and I'll
Yeah.
just give you the bullet points of what happened in the meeting and where we're kind of at, so that you can feel good about your decision to sign off. And then that I agree with you. It's kind of bad when we get a system in place and everybody says, well, if you had asked me, I would have said this. So I'll make sure that what
Yeah.
Sandy was asking for and how we're going to go about
Uh-huh.
remedying anything. She may be asking for things that we already have in the system requirements too. So that's why I'll have a developer with
Great.
us, so
Yeah.
that, it's all on the same. I'll have the right people in the room to have that conversation. So if you're good with that, that will be my
Yeah.
task for you. And then if you're okay with
Hmm.
that, do you want to just sign it right now, and then I can let you head back to all the other things you have to do?
Yeah. Let's just have the meeting with Sandy and then circle back with me. And if everything feels like full steam ahead after we check in with her, then I absolutely will be happy to sign it. Like I said, I don't, I don't want to cause a serious delay, but I also don't want to, if there's something glaring that we don't know about, I'd rather not be blindsided.
Okay.
So yeah, talk with her and then get back with me. And based on that meeting, I think we'll have a really good, we'll just have a good picture.
Okay, and just because, again, I know that the time is really sensitive, like if we don't get this into
Yeah.
the development team this week, we're probably pushing the project a month or so. And I don't know about you, but
Okay.
I always try to watch everybody's work-life balance. So I don't want to, give them too much
Sure.
extra. I want to have them be able to plan their work. Would it be okay if I
Okay.
copy you on the meeting with Sandy and just kind of describe a little bit about what we're going to be talking about and let you know that she's accepted the meeting, and then, you know, that I'm going to try to schedule it within the next day
Yeah.
or two. So I know today's Wednesday. If I
Yeah.
can get her by tomorrow, would you be okay signing off Friday? Even though we haven't had potentially the whole
Yeah.
meeting, but just for me to be able to find out, would that be okay?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And I'm like I said, not trying to put up a giant roadblock, but I think that's a really good effort. So I do have to go, Erica. I'm sorry to cut this off, but I appreciate that, and I'll look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, perfect. And I will just put a little 10-minute time slot on your calendar for Friday to pop in so you can sign it, and we'll be good to go.
That sounds great. All right, you have a
Okay.
great day. I'll see you soon.
You too, Max.
Okay, Erica. Congratulations. You had your
Thank you.
practice with Max. So great. So how do you feel after that conversation?
Good, good. There's definitely some things that I think could have been better. And I know like conversations when they're rushed are sometimes a challenge, but the big takeaway for me was I think next time I would try to find out how we could do this better in the future going forward so that it works better for him and that I have what he needs every single time.
That is a great call for something to think about for next time. But what about this time? I think it's also important to highlight some of your wins here. Where did you succeed with Max?
I think I succeeded by
what went
finding
well?
out. I think what went well was finding out what concerns he had. So, you know, we know that Max wants to please everybody, and I could hear that in his language with Sandy. So I was trying to figure out how to best bridge making him feel comfortable and having Sandy be okay with the system at the same time. And I think we got to a nice place with that. So hopefully, realistically, I can meet with Sandy right away.
Yeah, hopefully. Right. That's beyond our control right now.
Right.
But yes, it's a great plan moving forward. And I just want to highlight for you real quick, Erica, I thought approaching Max as an ally, you didn't present this as you're a problem to me, Max, or you're a roadblock I'm trying to clear. You really approached him as an ally, and great use of open-ended questions. What does this look like for you, Max? What would you feel comfortable with? How, and even you almost had it over the finish line, right there at the end. You like almost got on the sign. He's like, well, wait. And even that, he denied you your final touchdown there. But still, you were like, okay, all right. And giving him that the benefit of you knew his intentions were good and working within that. So I have one last question, and then I'll turn you back over to the webinar here. Any takeaways for you from this type of situation? Anything that you're going to keep in your back pocket the next time you run into a Max in real life?
I think that at the beginning of projects, I think my big takeaway was kind of what I said with him, that I would like to know what he needs in the future. I never thought about it until right now that it would be nice to go around the room when you're working on a project team and ask everybody what their needs are to be able to commit to things and to feel successful in the project and what they need as part of the team. And I think that's something really valuable that doesn't happen a lot. So I think that's a big takeaway for me.
Wow, that's a great takeaway. Thank you so much, Erica, for this great practice session. It was a pleasure to work with you. I'm going to turn you back over to the team. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Maya.
Thanks.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you to my fabulous simulation specialist who joined us for that. And just a note, Tina has never met Erica. She had no idea where this person was coming from, that I said, hey, I have a volunteer for you. But I knew that you would rock it, and you did.
Thank you.
But boy, Max really gave some pushback. He was a tough cookie.
Yes.
That's quite a challenging scenario, Tina.
Yeah.
So I'm really intrigued to move on to the next portion in these last 10 minutes that we have, and kind of find out what we learned from that and where it's taking us for our next steps.
Yeah, absolutely. So great job, Erica. Wow,
Thank
you
you.
were like master. We had multiple comments in the chat come in on nice strategy, and Priscilla mentioned that getting Max on board with a timeline was awesome. You had to bait him, but it worked smoothly. So really well done. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see what some of our learners and participants experienced when we implemented this on our journey, and then some of the data that we were able to glean from it so that we could make intelligent decisions moving forward. Thank you so much, Erica.
You're welcome. Thank you, Tina.
All right, so a few things around learner outcomes, as I know we've got nearly 10 minutes left, and I'm sure we want a little bit of time for questions. So this was the same scenario that we just saw Erica do in practice so fabulously, but this was with our participants that elected to do this scenario at Coca-Cola. And what was really interesting and fascinating about the results was we were able to get from the coach who was assessing each of the participants, how well was the strategy that we were looking for applied. So for example, we were able to break it down to see, did the learner treat Max like an ally and assume the best intent? We were able to see, were open-ended questions asked? Were solutions or perspectives taken into consideration? And then did the agreement happen right on that same interaction? So that was really cool. And we were able to see that while our learners did really well in proposing solutions and, you know, different perspectives during the conversation and treating Max like an ally, one of our big gaps and opportunities was securing that agreement to finish by the deadline. So this is definitely something that we were able to, as a learning team, drill down into, and then figure out from there how we use this to inform future learning opportunities. And we used it during our follow-up session to have another conversation about what we could have done differently to gain that agreement. And also we got the data once we drilled down into, for example, asking questions. How successful was the learner in reaching this objective? We were able to really break it down even further and get some commentary from the coach that evaluated them, just to look specifically at what were some of the challenges and what went into them partially reaching the objective or not reaching the objective at all. On the far end of not reaching the objective, the learner, for example, here was very direct to the point where Max became defensive. So they would have received that coaching during the first practice round, and then they would have had the chance to practice again and hopefully approached it a bit differently the second time around, which is kind of was powerful for us in being able to give people continual practice and be able to let them iterate on their approach in a safe environment. The other powerful piece was they got the recording of their interaction. So Erica, you would receive that little snippet of a recording so that you could go back and reflect. We have a lot of things that we do, little quirks and little things that we don't even notice that we do when we're interacting with others, that it's really powerful to be able to have that video playback and watch yourself back to see if you maybe have some blind spots around how defensive you might have been during the interaction, for example. And then we were able to see on the opposite end, so securing agreement, where we got lower results was on how successful was the learner in reaching the objective, and some commentary there, so that again, we could drill down and work more with those learners to address the real challenges that they were facing versus just kind of generically understanding that there are challenges with influencing and negotiating without really knowing what's behind that. So the coaching and the feedback, as well as the commentary for us as the learning professionals, was really, really helpful in determining our next steps. All right, and I'm going to wrap with just a couple of key takeaways, and then we can take a look to see if anyone has any questions in the chat. So we obviously, through the results, through the feedback and the stats, we were able to prove that within this organization and in this construct, and also in various other essential human skills, that simulation is an effective and realistic way to practice. It's nothing new. The military has been doing it since the 80s or even before, simulation based learning. And so what's new and different here is being able to practice human skills, which is a really unique opportunity. And we were able to share that we can do that. Embedding Sims into the learning journey versus as a standalone. We were thinking, how do we test this? Let's tack it onto something that is already existing. So a program that we have that's around building an effective customer experience. And within that, they would have to complete some prerequisites before they go into the practice. And then they would do some follow-up discussions after so that they can further the learning. So it wouldn't just end at the practice session. And that was a lesson learned for us and something that we are implementing as we move forward into additional offerings. The hosting of the pre and post sessions to just set the expectation. To some people, getting in the avatar simulated environment kind of mode can be a little bit slow to kind of catch on to the fact that they're interacting with, you know, kind of a cartoony person, but they're a real actor behind the scenes. So we like to do a pre-session with those that haven't experienced immersion before to give them a taste for what they're going to expect in the session, so they're not kind of caught off guard. And then smaller group sessions, we were thinking, and we're testing this now with our facilitators, where we're doing smaller groups of 4 instead of just the one-on-ones, so that just as we got a chance to observe Erica doing her practice, that those smaller groups of 4 would have a chance to observe one another going through the same or different scenarios. And you're then broadening your own learning by observing the feedback that's being given to others. And we also thought that the accountability of kind of having to schedule with a small group might be stronger. We might see greater adoption through having that smaller group format. So we have taken in some of those takeaways and lessons learned, and we're applying them now into the practice that's happening for our facilitators. So I will stop there, stop sharing, and see if we had any thoughts or questions in the chat. Anything that jumped out at you and resonated with you as you were observing Erica in practice?
Yes, please make sure you use that chat function. As I said, use the little thing that makes it go all panelists and attendees. And I noted that Kevin said it'd be fun to see photos of these wonderful actors playing the avatars, and I popped it in chat just as a reminder that that is one person, one simulation specialist behind all of those avatars, and we have the ability in that conflict resolution scenario where you're talking to 2 avatars, that's still one simulation specialist that's parachuting in and out of those avatars. That's part of what makes it so scalable. But if you are interested in seeing some of those pics, you can go to immersion.com, and we actually have a team page, and we have all of our shining faces on there, and you can kind of see, get a sneak peek at who's behind driving those avatars.
They're so talented, Jamie. I was so impressed. You're a simulation specialist, but I was so impressed with this recent iteration that we're working on for our trainers or facilitators. And just that one simulation specialist was able to play 7 different avatar characters and go between different mannerisms and, you know, the voice changing so quickly. And it was just really amazing to see.
Thank you. We are pretty proud of our team. I'll say that. And then I know, Carrie, you might be able to speak a little more. You might have noticed there was a response to something from another one of my colleagues, Jacob Nicolau. So Jacob, thank you for that. There was some questions about the net promoter scores and how that works. And Carrie, I don't know if you want to talk to that, and I'll go ahead and share this as well, just because I think it kind of relates to that subject.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's they're kind of different benchmarks. Everybody always wants to know, well, what's a good net promoter score? And I think based on the type of training that you're giving, you know, is it the first time that they're doing it? We kind of laugh. I mean, sometimes people to your point earlier, Tina, if it's a conflict or if it's a DEI scenario and it's a really difficult conversation, sometimes people don't like it, right? And they're like, that was hard. And that's reflected in the NPS score. So we really encourage you to take more than just that one level of Kirkpatrick's data. And I know Coca-Cola does that. I think it's smart to take multiple data points because again, the medicine may taste bad, but you might like it. For the most part, people say, wow, that was fun. That was really, really neat. But there's always, avatars are like people, right? Like you might like some people and you don't like other people, and it's just a preference.
And to your point, sometimes it's that visceral response to having to go through that difficult conversation.
Yeah.
And then thank you, Bridget. Bridget said, Tina, can you share how you plan to scale this training throughout the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So a number of ways. Currently, we are embedding this as part of our leadership development programs for coaching and other types of skill practice. So it's just a part of the learning journey. They get some foundational training as part of their cohort, and then they go into the practice as just, part of the journey. And then within our organization with influencing and negotiating, this is something that we're exploring tacking on to our ongoing curricula. I would love to see us have opportunities for practice on all of our essential human skills, but we had to kind of prioritize, and influencing and negotiating still becomes a big focus area for us. And then in terms of the facilitators and how we're upskilling them and having them practice, that's just something that will become part of the standard program. Whenever facilitators are upskilled, they'll go into several virtual sessions to set the stage, and then they'll have opportunities to practice not just once, but several times throughout the duration of the year.
And you're using that, you're kind of on cutting edge with that prototype model that we released during COVID, right? That has all the tiles like a Zoom call. You want to talk a little bit about that? Like why? I know we're at the top of our time, but I think it's so cool.
Yes. Yeah. So going back to what I said about the one actor is playing 7 different avatars, I've not seen this environment be able to be replicated so realistically as what we're putting together for our trainers or facilitators. I think this could be a powerful tool for teachers too. And they have, virtual avatar screens, just like we do on Zoom. And I think we can do up to 7 different characters. And they're given something that they have to present. And they're dealing with all the individual dynamics. So at the same time, you can see the videos of each of the avatars, and they're looking at their mobile. They're yelling at their kids. They didn't realize they were not muted and they're saying something crazy, or whatever it is, those types of things that we deal with on virtual meetings and interactions every single day. And we're bringing those to the forefront and using them as teaching opportunities. So it's a really powerful practice. We're getting great feedback so far.
Great. I was going to say it probably looks a little something like this. Where you're actually getting to practice with those avatars that are all calling in from home, just like we are today.
Yeah, exactly.
So we are at the top of the hour. I want to thank you once again, Tina, for sharing this story with us. We so appreciate it. Everybody, we're going to follow up. I've got Tina's contact information as well as mine, and I'll include Carrie's as well as part of that follow-up, as well as that research paper on the use of VR for soft skills. So we will be following up within the next couple of days. Thank you for your time. I so appreciate you, and hopefully we will see you back again next week. All right, bye-bye everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.